Hi everyone, this is Dawn. I'm so happy you could stop by. As you know, if you've watched my other videos, I'm taking classes at the Altenew Academy to earn my teaching certificate, and I'm very excited to share with you what I've learned in my 8th class. This class is all about seasonal scene building, learning how to use stamps and dies to build scenes. So let's get started on the card. I'll be using the Altenew Winter Cardinal Stamp and Die Set. This cardinal has 4 layers to it. It comes with a tree branch and berries, and I'm going to be building a winter scene for you today. First, I'm going to stamp all of my images using my MISTI stamping tool. I start by placing the solid image of the cardinal on my paper. I stamp this image using the Altenew Blush ink. Next, I put the second layer on. It lines up very easy with the first image. Then I stamp it using the Altenew Rouge Ink. Then I line up the third image and stamp it using the Crimson Ink. Using the velvet ink, I stamp the last layer, which is the darkest layer, and I also stamp the markings on the face. I stamp the cardinal's feet using the Altenew Obsidian black ink. Then I stamp the cardinal's eye using an acrylic block because I find it much easier since the stamp is so small. Next, I double stamp 3 tree branches using the Altenew dark chocolate ink. Now I'm going to stamp some of the berries onto a piece of cardstock using my acrylic block. I find that when it's small images like this, the acrylic block works much easier and faster for me. I stamp 9 berries using the crimson colored ink. When I'm done, I stamp the second layer using the velvet ink. It's very easy to line up the second image. Once I'm done stamping all of the images, then I will die cut them out. I start with the small berries and run them through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. I don't take great care to line up the dies exactly because I was fine with having some white show on the edge of the berries to give them a look of snow. When I'm done die cutting all the berries out, I use my Gemini Jr to cut out all the tree branches and the cardinal. Again, I don't try to line up the tree branches perfectly because I wanted the white to show on the tree branches as well. I tape the dies down so they don't move around, and then I die cut them out. Now I'm going to make the scenery for the card. I start with a piece of white cardstock. You can't see on the paper, but I drew a very light pencil line where I wanted to cut the snowy hill, just to give me a guideline to follow. Next, I'm going to be using a sentiment from the Altenew Build-A-Flower Poinsettia. The sentiment is wishing you a Merry Christmas. I was looking for a big sentiment to go across the bottom of the snowbank, and this was perfect. I take my snowbank and I put it in my MISTI. I'm going to heat emboss the sentiment, so first I prep my paper with my embossing powder bag and then stamp it with Versamark ink. Then I cover the sentiment using Ranger Silver embossing powder. When my heat tool is good and hot, then I heat emboss the sentiment. I like to lay the paper on my glass media mat. I don't know why, but I feel like it helps to prevent the paper from warping. I wanted the background to look like snow was falling, so I have this older Hero Arts layered Christmas tree stamp set, and it has these cute little snowflake stamps. I'm going to use them to stamp my background. I want to heat emboss the snowflakes onto the card, so I prep my paper with the embossing powder bag. Then using my acrylic block and Versamark ink, I randomly stamp the snowflake all around the card. First, I do all the small snowflakes and then cover them with the Ranger embossing powder. When my heat tool is good and hot, I heat emboss the snowflakes, moving all around to make sure not to stay in one spot for too long so the paper doesn't warp. I work in batches since it's hard to see where the ink is. Once I heat emboss the small snowflakes, then I go back and stamp some of the bigger snowflakes. Then I put the embossing powder on it and heat emboss the rest of them. You can see how shiny the look on the card is. So now I'm going to ink blend the background using the Altenew Caribbean Sky ink. I take my blending brush and put some ink on it. Then I tap some of the ink off on a scrap piece of paper. I do this because I want a very light blue background, and this helps to get most of the ink off of the blending tool, and it helps to prevent dark, harsh spots. Next, I take a cloth and rub off any excess ink that is on top of the white snowflakes. Now that the background is done, I start to build the scenery onto the card. First, I glue the sentiment onto the front of the card. Next, I trim the panel down to 5 1/4 by 4 inches. I trim a little off each side so the sentiment stays in the middle of the card, and I trim a little off the top. Now I arrange the tree branches where I want them to go on the card. Once I have the layout done, I glue them to the card using my liquid glue. I find the perfect spot for my bird on the tree, and then I glue his feet on the tree first, and then I cover the feet with the body of the bird. Now it's time to glue the berries on the tree. There is no right or wrong spot to put the berries. I wanted a bunch of berries, but you can put as many as you want on the tree. I just glue them randomly onto the tree branches. I wanted the red to stand out. Next, I glue a piece of craft foam on the back of the panel. The craft foam is just a little smaller than the panel. Then I glue the panel to a piece of red cardstock that I cut to 5 3/8 by 4 3/16. And to finish off the card, I glue the panel onto a piece of cardstock folded to 5 1/2 and 4 1/4. That completes my card for today. If you like the video, please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Thank you and have a wonderful day.